Hey everybody, I'm Ryan, and here at eTrailer we install, test fit, and review a lot of different parts. That way we can try to answer any questions that you guys might have. And that's exactly what we're doing on our 2020 Hyundai Kona today. We're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT Class 1 trailer hitch receiver. So right off the bat, my first impressions is I think the hitch is actually going to look pretty good. It's really not all that noticeable. The only thing you're going to be able to see is the receiver tube opening here, and since the rest of the hitch is up under the car, you're not going to have to worry about a big bar hanging down or anything like that, which it's always nice to be able to maintain more of a factory look. Now with these Konas, they're not huge cars, and so having a trailer hitch is going to allow you to use some accessories. That way you can help free up some space on the inside. And I really do think this hitch will work out great for that. Not only is it going to give us some good ground clearance, so it sits up nice and tight against the bottom of our Kona, but it's also going to give us some good bumper clearance. So the end of the receiver tube is just going to be just behind the very edge of our bumper, and that's important, especially whenever you're using folding accessories. That way you can flip them in that upright position and not have to worry about them hitting the back of your Hyundai. So this is a Class 1 hitch. So it's going to give us that 1¼ inch by 1¼ inch receiver tube opening. And it's going to have a reinforced collar, not only for extra strength, but I think it actually makes the hitch look a little more complete, if you will. It's going to have a standard 1/2 inch size pinhole. Now pin and clip does not come included, but if you need one, you can pick it up here at eTrailer. We're going to have loop style safety chain openings that give us quite a bit of room, and we should be able to use just about any size hook that we might have. As far as the hitch's weight capacities go, it's going to have a 200-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating. So that's going to be the amount of weight that's pushing down on the hitch. So that's good for those 1 and 2 bike racks, for example. As far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, it's going to be 2,000 pounds, and that's going to be the amount of weight that's pulling on the hitch. So that's the weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have on it. Now, I do always suggest, never a bad idea, just to grab your Kona's owner's manual and make sure your Hyundai can pull that much weight safely. So we have had a lot of questions from customers asking what bike rack would be a good matchup with this, and a lot of people have used the Thule Helium Pro and said they really liked it, and I agree with them. It's actually one of my favorite hanging style bike racks. It's really nice. I think it would look great on the back of the Kona. It's made from aluminum, so it's really lightweight. And honestly, it almost kind of matches the back of your bumper here. So if you're interested in a bike rack, that's one I definitely recommend taking a look at. Now I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and you can use these to help figure out which hitch mounted accessories to get. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 12.5 inches. And from the center of the hitch pinhole to the edge of our rear bumper, that's going to be about 3 inches. You can use that measurement to figure out that if any folding accessories you might have can be stored in that upright position without contacting the bumper. So at the end of the day, hitch is going to allow you to use those different types of accessories and get out there and enjoy yourself. Now as far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. Actually, quite a few customers said they really didn't have any issues doing it themselves, and I could see why. There's really not a whole lot to it, so it shouldn't take you a whole lot of time or really fight you too much. But speaking of installation, let's go ahead and put it on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Kona, and what we're going to do is come over here on the passenger side and remove this small underbody panel. So this is the small panel that we need to remove. To get that done, we're going to have 2 push pin style fasteners here and here, and you can use a trim panel tool or even a flathead screwdriver, and you just kind of pry underneath the head of the fastener and it'll pop out. So get them 2 pulled out. Then if we kind of look up, you can see our panel here connects to the bottom of our frame rail with a 10mm nut. So we'll grab our socket, pull that off as well. And we should be able to kind of grab the panel, work it down and out. We'll set it off to the side. Now if you have an all-wheel drive model Kona, you are going to need to lower your exhaust a little bit and give us some extra room to work. In our case, Ours is all-wheel drive, so we're going to do that. Before we lower it though, I do suggest taking a strap, just kind of running it from side to side. That way we can kind of control how far and how fast we actually let our exhaust down. So in your case, your setup will likely be a little bit different. Our customer actually has a modified exhaust, but the way to lower it is the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a rubber isolator hanger here, and you can spray these down with some soapy water or some penetrating oil. And then take a pry bar and pry it off. So we have this one on this side. Looking over here, there's another factory hanger, so you'll probably have to pop this one off as well. And there's also one in the center if you follow our exhaust up a little bit. I'm going to take this one off too. Doesn't really matter which side of the hanger you take off, just whichever one's easier. Once I have that popped off, I'm just going to loosen up my strap and lower our exhaust down a little bit to give us that extra space. Now what we can do here on the driver's side, you can see we have an electrical connector here that runs along. We're just going to pop that off. That way we can kind of just push it out of the way, give us more room for our hitch. So we'll go right here. There's a little plastic fastener. You take a trim tool or your flathead. Just pop that off. And I think I'm going to remove this one right here too. So do that same thing, get behind it, pop it off, and then we can kind of just tuck it back and out of the way a little bit for now. Something like that ought to be good. And then if we look at our frame rail and we kind of move towards the front, you can see right here there's a little rubber plug, and we're going to remove that. That'll be an access hole. That way we can get our hardware up inside the frame rail. You can just grab that with your hand and pop it out. There's a plug exactly like this on the other side of the vehicle, and from this point on, anything we do to this side, we're also going to do over there because it's set up the same way. So now we can start to get our hardware inside of the frame. Now we're going to have two attachment points. We're going to have this hole here and this one right here. So they'll all be the same on each side. So what we're going to do is take a Fishwire. We're going to take the coiled end of it, feed it into that hole, and what we're trying to do is get it to come out of our access hole here. So you can usually get it pretty close. You may have to kind of reach up there and help get it down. So once we have that out of the access hole, we can get our hardware on. The hardware that we're going to use, we're going to take one of these spacer blocks, slide that over the coiled end, and a carriage bolt. So that carriage bolt will just thread onto that fish wire there. Then what we can do is feed our hardware through that access hole. Push it up into the frame, and then we can pull the other end of our fish wire until our bolt comes out like that. Now, once we verified it's lined up and comes out good, I'm just going to push that bolt back in the frame just barely. That way our hitch don't interfere with it when we go to install it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that same thing for this attachment point there. Now with an extra set of hands, we can grab our hitch and raise it into position. You want to take the corresponding fish wires and run them through the holes in the hitch first. Once we have both of them through there, kind of get our hitch going up and simultaneously kind of pull out that slack in the fish wire. Once we get it lined up, we can pull our bolts through. So once we get our hardware through there, we can remove one of our pull wires, and be careful when you're doing this. You don't want that bolt to drop back in the frame. We can take a flange nut and get one started on each side, hand tight. That way the hitch will support itself while we work on the rest of it. So sometimes I do suggest when you're taking this pull wire off, if the bolt's kind of loose, you could take a flathead screwdriver and that'll kind of just keep it in position. That way we don't have to worry about it falling back inside of the frame. And once we have that pull wire removed, again, we can grab a flange nut and put it on the end of our bolt. Now that we have all of our hardware in place and hand tight, we can snug it down using an 11/16 socket. With all of our hardware snug, we can come back with a torque wrench and tighten it down to the amount specified in our instructions. Now that the hitch is all torqued down, what we're going to do is just take those rubber plugs, just pop them back into the frame rail. And what I went ahead and did is just where our wiring, where we loosen it up, I just pushed the fastener back into position there. And now we can simply raise our exhaust back up and rehang it by just lining up our hangers and pushing them back into position there. And once the exhaust is supporting itself, we can go ahead and get rid of our strap. Now we can grab the small panel that we removed and simply just reinstall that the opposite way that we removed it. Whenever you put these push pins back in, you're going to make sure that they actually go through not only the panel but the tab itself. That way it'll actually secure it. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of our CURT Class 1 trailer hitch receiver on our 2020 Hyundai Kona.